city that you're joining from. And also we want you to put your contact information into the chat so that we can all network and communicate.
Let me put Raleigh, North Carolina in the house. It seems like every day somebody from North Carolina besides me is here.
Yeah,
Charlotte, there
the
we go.
two of us.
That's right. That's right. Barcelona. Oh man. Uh,
Yay.
I
I
think that's
want to
the
go.
furthest we have now. That's right. You said I want to go. So
Yeah.
Hawaii, Barcelona, Charlotte. What's up, Sharon? Incredible. We'll keep bringing people in. A bunch of people are just coming in right now.
Yes. And we
Christopher,
won't
how are you
delay
doing?
too long.
Christopher, how's it going?
Really well. I'm really happy to be here with everyone today and share. And certainly yesterday was really enjoyable to hear, and glad to see the YouTube page launched, and heard a lot of the expressions and the sentiments yesterday, and I'll touch on some of that. But generally, it was really good to see at such an occasion as this and this time that we find ourselves in, to see the people that look like us and just to sit there and just listen.
Yeah.
Not even so much as all the content that was expressed yesterday, but to know that I was hearing several different voices of people with consistency that come from more cultural surroundings that we are more familiar with.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're at 11:02. Patty, you want to jump into it now?
Yes. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started, you all. You all know Stefan. He's going to say a few words, and we'll let Chris go ahead and get started. So
You
we're
got
ready.
it.
Thank
Uh,
you all.
yeah, thanks everybody for being here. I'm Stefan. I'm, as I said, in Raleigh, North Carolina. Good to see these faces. I see faces that we've seen the last 2 days. And y'all, this is different. So Christopher will tell you in a second. Sometimes, well, his conferences are worldwide. So Christopher is one of the conferences that has people from everywhere, more diversity than any other conference there is. But for the most part, AI, you're not seeing folks like us that are in leadership positions. And we know that we don't want to be behind when it comes to literacy and understanding what AI is. Even in just listen, AI is kind of like assisted intelligence. It's nothing spooky, or some people might call it augmented intelligence. It augments the human experience. That's why I'm gonna keep coming back to we're still human, but we have these kind of superpowers in the tools. Also, Christopher will touch on this. We're already using it. If you got a phone, or a device, there's AI sort of ubiquitously already in it. The thing is, we want to know where to step next. There's a mint to be made in it. There's a bucket load of mistakes as well. So in our endeavor to give you 1 week of literacy and talking about it, some of the most amazing speakers. Um, and I just got to say a shout out to Patty. I went to her with the idea of doing a National Black AI Literacy Day. And she said, I don't think a day is going to be enough. I think we should do a week. So all of y'all are here every hour on the hour because of Patty stretching. And she's my mentor, by the way. She's with SCORE and just know that she's an incredible mentor. So we're stretching to a week, and here we are. My friend Christopher Lafayette is here. I've done a number of his conferences now. He is as wide and out there and deep as they get. So, Christopher, I've given you an interesting thing to talk about today. I know we're going to talk about ethics. None of us really have brought out emergent tech of what you're doing with XR, even VR. So tell us what that stuff is, a little bit about yourself, and go for it. And I might stop you and ask a few questions. Also in the chat, feel free to put comments or questions down there. Mr. Christopher Lafayette, it's you.
Thank you so much, Stefan, and thank you, and good morning or good afternoon or good day from wherever you might find yourself here. And thank you, Ms. Patty Williams, for such a gracious invitation to be able to spend this time with all of you today. As I said, in such an occasion where we find ourselves here firmly headed and that we've now arrived into the AI era. I'm Christopher Lafayette, emerging technologist and humanitarian, founder of Gatherverse and several other different ventures such as Og Lab, and consideration of working with Microsoft and NVIDIA, international national speaker here in Silicon Valley. I've had the pleasure of being able to speak around the world, even up to this minute, if you will, on so many different emerging technologies and what we see at this intersection of emerging technologies and humanity first considerations for human betterment and human sustainability with social extension. And when I was asked and invited to be able to spend some time here with Stefan, whom I've known Stefan for some years and have enjoyed over the years being able to share stage and share some time with him, whether it's on Gatherverse or other events that we've been part of. I just think it was a wonderful and excellent opportunity to be able to spend some time with the communities of color that have been able to assemble with us from here, transmetropolitan, transcontinental. And if you find yourself here today, just know that you have updated and up leveled your understanding when it comes already to AI and emerging technologies. Now, all technologies abide within the eco-habitat. And in this eco-habitat, you have over 270 technologies, 54 main technologies with 5 to 10 subsets per technology, and this number continues to grow. And for the past 10 years, I've been working on the eco-convergent framework when it comes to 270 plus technologies that I'm presently studying to this day. Now, all these technologies abide within the eco-habitat, but what happens when these technologies that abide within this eco-habitat together begin to scale, and then they begin to form a merged pair? This is what we call the merged pairing. Now, these technologies on amorphous scale, we don't completely know what they will ultimately evolve into, because when these technologies scale and grow at the same time, they're not new. You know, I heard people make mention, and they say often that AI is new. AI is not new. These technologies that you see coming into view, they're not new, they're scaling. And so what happens when these technologies begin to merge pair together? Now, when the amalgamation of these technologies come together, that's when we call technological convergence, if you will. That all these technologies that abide within the eco-habitat come together, pair together, and on a amorphous scale become something else. For example, today we talk about artificial intelligence, but when you take the pairing of, say, virtual reality or the metaverse with its subsets being AR, VR, physiohaptics, textile, and you start to think about technology such as fintech, pairing those together when it comes to blockchain and DeFi, DAOs, dApps, NFTs, so forth and so on, just walk with me if you will. And then we have artificial intelligence played by machine learning and deep learning. And then all the different models that are there, and CNNs and convolutional neural networks. And we start thinking about all the things that compile the perceptron. And we start thinking about diffusion models. Start thinking about all the different types of models when we talk about generative AI. I know that people think for some reason that generative AI is the mainstay dominant AI that we're seeing today, which couldn't be anywhere further from the truth. But it is here. It is present. It's certainly not the only type of artificial intelligence that we're dealing with, and we'll touch on that. I'm happy to touch on that much more. But we have all these technologies that abide within this eco-habitat paired together, and now what we're seeing is them coming together. So you can take the metaverse, which is the virtual ecosystem of interaction and communication, paired with AI, and now we're coming out with new naming definitions and conventions. And so now we've had something paired such as immersive intelligence. And so what does that now look like? So we tend to look at these technologies that come out into consumer side when it goes into cross-sector, but we have to have an appreciation for that any type of emerging technology must be appreciated not as a single variable equation, but it's a multivariable equation of what we're looking at and how that comes into relatability. But here's the deal. When you look at these emerging technologies that abide within the eco-habitat of 270 plus technologies, there's only two things. Of all these technologies, there's only two things that influence every single other technology within the eco-habitat. There's only two. It's artificial intelligence and human intelligentsia. With that level of influence and that much leverage, to be able to influence every single technology that abides within the eco-habitat. Now, let's kind of go back
Hey,
for
Chris,
it. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you a question.
Go
I
ahead.
knew you were going to say humans in there and then artificial intelligence, but beyond that, a creator who at any time can allow a tornado to happen or a sudden medical thing. The creator of the universe and how that mysterious unknown power can infuse into both humans and into artificial intelligence. It seems like it might be one of the biggest parts of this entire equation, you know, if we're going to look at bringing everything down to the basics of what we have.
Definitely, good technology is superseded by great technology, and great technology is superseded by even better technology. This is what we commonly refer to as the disrupted. You're absolutely right, because the greatest disruption to contemporary our time hasn't been technology. It's actually been COVID-19 and the impact of what we've seen when it comes to the pandemic. We've become more virtual in the past 59 months than we had the past 59 years, and we're not going back. And so, being that that's the case, that is hyper scaled and hyper accelerated that which would abide within the eco habitat. And this is what people aren't necessarily appreciating when it comes to the magnitude of what's happened with this sudden, all of a sudden, emerging push of not just artificial intelligence, but what we saw with crypto assets and meme coins and altcoins, what we saw with non-fungible tokens. Non-fungible tokens weren't anything new. They were new to you, but NFTs were around even since the days before even BitDNS in 2011, Color Coin, Counterparty, and all of that. It's been around for some time with all types of different 720 and 1155 ERC standards and all of that. It just became more relevant and prevalent. And to your point, what happens is when we're dealing with these type of technologies, they are catapulted or they are positioned to accelerate at any given moment, subject to the state of the conditions of the world and things that may happen. So when we became more virtual, that updated and it scaled the tempo and the cadence of our expression and communication one to another. Let's see this. Technology moves in three phases: increments, shifts, and leaps. Incrementation, maybe an iPhone update, iOS, Android. That doesn't affect everybody in the world. A shift, desktop, laptop, HMD, head-mounted display, mobile phone, some kind of new device entry into the theater and the ecosystem of hardware. A shift. Widely adopted, but it doesn't impact all entire civilization. But a leap,
Mhm.
Now, we don't see those too often. Web 1, Web
Right.
2, Web 3, the cloud, the metaverse, artificial intelligence. We don't see that, but that has the magnitude and the capacity to be able to affect all of entire civilization. But of any of those, we must realize that we've come from the farming revolution, we've come from the industrial age revolution 1 and 2, we come into the information revolution or the information age or information era, and we never stop to consider that in the 90s, specifically, squarely, if we're going back to nativity, when it comes to these type of emerging technologies really beginning to hyper scale, what would happen when you gave a whole entire civilization access to more information that they've ever had? And what ended up happening, especially here in the epicenter in Silicon Valley, and look, this doesn't take away from the type of technological prowess where you may find yourself in. And as I tell so many people so many different times, when they say we're going to be the next Silicon Valley, you don't have to be the next Silicon Valley to do incredible innovations. Be what you're going to be, native and ecocentrically according to where you're at, and let that be the unique contributed value to what it is that you offer the world. You don't want to be like Silicon Valley. You can't be like that, and nor can we be like you. So embrace your individual culture that you have when it comes to your eco culture of these human characteristics that are permeated in and throughout technological ecosystems. But we'll touch on that in a second. But what I'm saying is when we look at these type of evolution and these type of evolvement, when we start to look at the type of growth that we're seeing at this accelerated rate, when we received all this information in the 90s, who so many Black people weren't even privy to because of the lack of democratized access and the tech literacy that we were subjected to and didn't have, when you see that, they ran it and it began to scale, but the bubble grew. And it grew, and companies were being developed overnight. And then the bubble burst at the end of the 90s into the 2000s. Why was that? Because they were still operating as an industrial age when it came to the information age, and they came to find out we cannot run and operate information age standards with industrial age protocol. Now, walk with me. Now we walked up further, and now we started to see a different change in industry, the auto industry, Lehman Brothers, banking industries, and all that began to deteriorate because that was all old infrastructure, ill prepared for what was soon to arrive. So now we get into 2007, circa September. A man by the name of Steve Jobs comes out and says, I have this iPhone. This device, you're really going to like it. This is important. He comes out with the way this is a democratized platform. I know we see it as a mobile phone or a device, but he comes out with that platform that has a thing called applications. And whether we really appreciated the magnitude or not, this preceded by months what was soon to become the Great Recession. But what he did was he launched us into a new era of technological exploration. And now we had access to applications. And that means from the information age, scale up. Now we have applications, and now we're able to apply and to be able to use tools we've never had before in the hands of the consumer. Now, we ran with the applications era from 2007 all the way to 2019. Now, what happens when you give a whole entire civilization access to applications and infrastructure of cloud communication to be able to communicate with one another in an accelerated fashion? That hyperscaled us once again. And now, when the pandemic came out, to what you just said, Stefan, which I just think is so appropriate, when the pandemic comes out, it now ushers us and it forces us to adopt and to describe technologies that were already there that we were not prepared to be able to use for, yet we used them anyway. So now we find ourselves, one quick second, Stefan, now we find ourselves right here, 2024, in a situation, as I said years ago, what happens when the technology becomes more advanced than the technologist? And now that's come to pass.
Oh, I was going to say, how close are we to that? Because, some people might say AGI or super AGI, but this technology that we've made really big, really smart. So you feel like, by the way, thank you for that unbelievable history lesson of how this has evolved. Nobody's broken it down.
Many of us can't appreciate where we're at today because we don't even have an appreciation in the iota of a fathom where we come from. But let me say this with iterance, since you just said appreciation for the history lesson. And here's the biggest point when we start talking about AI and AGI and superintelligence and theory of mind and self-aware and cosmic AI. Look, I'm an emergent technologist. I've been studying artificial intelligence for a very long time. These are facts. And I got receipts to prove it. This is what I like about timestamp consideration of expression and however you render that out. These are facts. But what I'm saying is when we talk about this, and even at this summit today, when we start talking about AI, I just want to impress upon this particular group of people, because I think it's important. I've spoken on stages all over the world and having these discussions, and I feel like I'm properly equipped to be able to say what I'm about to say. And I may step on some toes right now, and I ask that you forgive me. I'm glad I had a lettuce can't go through my screen, but I'm going to say this because it's important. We sit here and say that we're held back and we don't have a seat at the table of those that are developing and building AI. But we've never had this much autonomy to build our own naming right conventions and our own applied sciences. I am not going to be beholden to not feeling like I can't be part of the equivalent in the conversation because I can't develop something and be part of the technology that was invented and that was named by another man. You have every opportunity to build your own technology, your own applied science, and name it whatever you want, deploy it to the world and monetize if you can. And we do that by collaboration. But the idea that I feel like I'm held back because some man named artificial intelligence in a group of guys in Dartmouth, and then they started experimenting with it at Stanford with Mycin and Dendril and all the different types of technologies that have come and the different type of models that have been coming through. And now I feel like I'm held back because I can't be at their table. I'm a table maker. I'm going to build my own. And I encourage everyone on this talk to be able to do that too. That's how I roll. That's real talking. For those of you know me, you know I live that way. So what I'm saying is this whole subject of AI, and we don't have a seat at the table, and the Nick Bostroms and the Mustafa Alakars and all these other people that are inventors, and the Jeffrey Hennons and the Yan LeCuns and the Ilya Sisters and all that. It's great that they can innovate, but we're just as much as capable of innovating ourselves and naming it what we want to name it and how we see fit. So I'm never going to be beholden to another man's technology when I know that there is more technology that's undiscovered than technology that has been discovered, Stefan.
Oh, wait. There's more technology that what?
that has
That,
not been discovered, the technology that has been discovered. Look, you think,
yeah, I got
let
you.
me say that when we talk about AI, we're sitting there saying, oh man, these products that are coming out. Listen, we have hyperscale. We're seeing NVIDIA skyrocket in record number breaking profits. And we're seeing so many different companies that were relevant, but now are super relevant. You think we've seen profit? You think we've seen capital? Look, those companies in the application era became incredibly wealthy overnight, and Black people missed their opportunity to innovate and build. And now we're in a situation where we're heading now, and now we're all in it, all up in this AI era. And now we're missing the opportunity to build and innovate because we're sitting here, some of us, not all of us, we're sitting here based and subscribing and subjected to the markets and saying, I need to start working in AI. No, I would subscribe to you. Now I would do what everyone else is doing that has the type of unlimited capacity seemingly in the capital that they have to compute. They're not building and innovating and thinking, oh man, we can't wait for more people to subscribe to ChatGPT. They'll know you do that. The big move when it comes to AI infrastructure development and sovereign AI development and hyperscale in the world, it's not for product delivery. Right now, this is about discovery because we've never come this close to understanding physics. Here's a quick lesson about AI. AI, and the reason that it's hyperscaling, it's not because it's such a product that's delivered on the consumer grade and cross sector, public and private sector. It's because this is an applied science. And you must understand that all emerging technologies, before they enter the eco-habitat, come from this great abstraction of science. And we're able to reach back and take a part of science and to be able to create something from this chaotic state and to be able to make it into something that's more concrete in our understanding. And we name that and call that a product or a thing. But the reality is that we use these products, they afford us the opportunity as a tool to go back into the abstraction of science of what we don't know, to be able to start to understand discovery and deployment of that. And then we take that to continue to do the same. So at the end of this, and at the end of the day, all we're really vying for, especially in this time, is we're going for scientific and exploration discovery. You've never had, and I've never had such a greater opportunity to be able to build. Predecessors didn't have this opportunity. They were trying to figure out which water fountain they could drink of, which restaurant can they go to, and what street they can walk down without being harassed. We have more opportunity than any generation in the world. We are left with no excuse when it comes to innovating, and we shouldn't have to wait for anyone to be able to do this. So salute to you, Stefan, for being able to put us together to have this. And I hope I'm not offended and stepping
Oh
on.
man, this is good. Take a drink of water for a second. Y'all, this is Christopher Lafayette. This is who he is, what he does. This is him. And I want to tell you, you think we've had some people, a lot of people in this conference. Christopher gets global people. I mean, and then he brings us back doing panel sessions to talk about where we're moving, how we're moving, but he's a yes, do it. I think Chris, what's that phrase you always tell me? Oh, yeah, let's get together and chop wood. I never really heard that, but Christopher was like, we need to do something. You know, we launched Black Metaverse. It took off 6,000 people with it. But Chris keeps staying on the cusp of what the edge is. And I just want to re-say for people in the back, no excuses. The one thing is us sharing with other people and mentoring this next generation is massively important. So we got information, just share this stuff. Be a conduit, not a reservoir. Be a conduit, not a reservoir. And right now, Christopher, you're a reservoir. It's coming out. So do your thing. Go for it.
You know, as I sit here and think
Hold on,
about,
real quick. Where are you? Where are what platforms are you on? Because I'll pull up the links and drop them in the chat.
Thank you. Good one.
I'm on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Sister Lauren.
Just for our Gatherverse. Y'all, Gatherverse is massive. It's gatherverse.org.
Or you can find me at christopherlafayette.com. You know, when I think about the magnitude stuff, and you know this, that the magnitude of these type of deployed models that we're seeing today when it comes to generative and diffusion models, the type of and the level of chain of reasoning and the type of Bayesian theory that we see displayed before us and algorithmically, which is just so fascinating to see this being done, because the majority of the technologies that have been studying in machine learning and deep learning for a number of years, if you will, some spanning into decades, They never thought that they would see this type of deployment in 2022 November to come out with ChatGPT 3 and then 3.5 subsequent 4 and then 4.0. And then what we're seeing when it comes to Gemini or Mistral or Claude Opus and all the other different capable models that are out there in Sora and Veo and so forth and so on. And the small models that we're seeing when it comes to Apple Elm efficient learning management systems and Apple Phi and so forth and so on. And so what's happening now is that being that the technology has become more accelerated for most technologists to be able to stay with, and the type of policy can't grab this quick enough because technologists, your standard traditional technologist, she or he cannot deploy this to policy, and policy cannot convey this to legislators. And when it comes to the standards and the types of ethics, if you will, because we talked about ethics and coming from morals and agreed upon rules and all the different things that we could talk about this. This is a big part of what we talk about at GatherWorks when we talk about accessibility and education, equality, community development, safety, privacy, wellness, and ethics. But when we start to find ourselves in this situation when it comes to the deployment and the understanding of this, we now realize that there's not going to be strong regulatory fashion because we're in an AI arms race globally, especially if you look here in the West in the consideration of China, Russia, and North Korea. And there were so many that advocated last year, technologists, and the hypocrisy of many of them, because they advocated, said, hey, what's this GPT, these generative pre-trained transformers? We need to slow down. And so they read and signed it, Wozniak, Musk, and all that. But Musk just did the biggest startup deal for raising deal flow and capital that's ever been done and recorded on the books, over $6.5 billion in one fell swoop. That's bigger than what it took the accumulation of Magic Leap over 4 years, which was a massive deal when it came to the startup circuit. But the same advocate, the one that's lying to you, we know it, and is saying we need to slow down, is the one that's hyperscaling and accelerating with the level of GPU distribution in H1100s for compute on the gigawatt level. We've never seen anything like this, but that's not my point in bringing all of what I'm saying up now. So when we look and see what's happening with the type of models that are happening, my advice to everyone that's here today as innovators, it's bifurcated career path. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with someone working for Google and Apple, but I'd be much more happy when someone like us builds the next Google or Apple, and we must realize that we need to hyperscale. That is the name of the game. I'm an accelerationist. I never advocated for slowing down. In fact, I said that we're not moving fast enough. I wrote that. We're not moving fast enough to be able to stay up to date with these models because, listen, we talk about simple AI and AGI. Most people have no appreciation for artificial general intelligence, which is a colloquialism. No one could be able to really define where we're at when it comes to scale. There is no scale model. The metrics are out. Listen, we are running out of metrics to be able to quantify the capacity of what it is that these models are capable of doing, especially when we start to look at the parameter scale. Because how do you quantify it? Because when you have a small model that's just as capable as a 350 billion parameter, that an 8.1 billion parameter is just as capable as a large language foundational model, that throws so much of your math out the window, because now you're looking at over a trillion parameter, which we don't even know the full amount of what it comes to be able to power at the level of what we're looking at with GPT-4, let alone GPT-4 with conversational AI and computer vision and multimodal capacity. Here's the point. We're only at simple and narrow AI. If we so-called reach this colloquial agreed upon AGI, then we have theory of mind that's next. Then we have self-aware. And then after you look at self-aware, then the so-called Nick Bostrom's super intelligence, which you can poke a lot of holes through what Bostrom said. I know you brought that up, Stefan, and Bostrom. I read Bostrom a long time ago when it came to super intelligence. Good book, but you can now poke a lot of holes at it because now time has told the story of the reality of what it is. But if we do reach super intelligence and cosmic AI, if we come to that level, listen, we are seeing things in simple AI, not even AGI, that's alarmingly concerning, because the capability at some point, these models will go so far and they will realize that the English language, any other type of language that's on the face of this earth, is too slow for them to communicate with, and they need to develop their own language. Now, Eric Schmidt said, as soon as that happens, we need to pull the cord. Once they begin to create their own languages, to communicate with one another through automated GPT. But here's the deal. When Sundar Pichai, last year, CEO of Google, was interviewed at 60 Minutes in March 2023, in April 2023, and they said, okay, what are your thoughts on AI? And the first thing that comes out of his mouth is saying we need help from law enforcement and for governments, because they realize already that there's things that they're creating within the laboratory that they don't even understand themselves how it works, and it's similar. And why would that be the case? Why wouldn't that be the case when it's taking consideration of the anatomical structure and the human brain and the body and the mind itself? And there's doctors and specialists that are practitioners, and they are brilliant-minded surgeons and brilliant-minded doctors and general practitioners, and they'll tell you they don't completely understand how this works. Now you start to tinker and think that you're calling yourself God and be able to create this body, this vessel, head cavity, chest cavity, and lower abdominal cavity, and all the things in it, and you're attempting to build that, and you know full well that you don't completely understand this, so you're not going to be able to understand AI. And just to say for the record, AI is nowhere close to comparable consideration to the greatest database of the computer base that yet abides on the face of this planet is the human brain. There's no comparison with the human brain to AI, so never feel that you're inferior to any model that's made by the hands of man compared to what God has given you already. Whether you believe that or not, it's so anyhow. What you have in the confines of your mind is more powerful of a tool than anything that mankind has made and that will ever make, even that a robot will make. The computational rendering outcome, fine, I'll give you that. It renders fast, but it doesn't render with all the different emotions that we have. AI will never know the smell of the salt of the sea of the air. It will never understand the brilliance and the beauty of what it feels like to look in the sky at the northern lights, or to feel the heartbeat of another from one side of the vessel to the other. They'll never know what that feels like. Never forsake what it is that we already have. It is by way of this ingenuity and the human code that's been passed down through the ages and dispensations of time through procreation, that AI can never do, because AI doesn't have a grandma and AI cannot procreate. Never forsake what it is that we have that's available with the DNA that's been given to us, if you will. And that's why we're in the point of creating synthetic DNA, to be able to mock and manipulate and trying to emulate what it is that's already been developed, because technology always gets its dictates and fashions from what has already been made and created. So with that said,
thank you.
what I want us to understand is that when we start to look at where we find ourselves today as a group of people in a community of color, through the type of involvement of what we're looking at when it comes to the societal considerations, that most ecosystems that we build and that we see today comes from a place of homogeneity, and it's homogenized. And when we start to look at these ecosystems, the people that are building, we now know that undoubtedly in many ways that it's better to build instead of from a monocultural perspective, but from a polycultural perspective, and be able to contribute. But the days of us being on beggars' hands to be able to work in someone else's ecosystem that doesn't want us there in the first place, they can't appreciate the cultural identification and what it is that we contribute uniquely. They don't subscribe to the idea that we should hire the people that we want to buy our products. They don't subscribe to that. They don't care about that. When Meta came out, and I partner with them in a lot of ways, but when Meta came out with their type of models for Llama 2 and now Llama 3, they got rid of over 60% of their policy people. They got rid of over 40% of their comms, because they understand that they don't want to be met with checks and balances within their organizations. We have to realize part of the failed ways of diversity, equity, inclusion, a lot of that had success, a lot of that had failures. And I do hold a lot of our DEI leaders accountable. You had an opportunity to leave the door open and you didn't do it. I say that now, and I stand on that. I will stand on business on that. And we have to evolve even from that. When it comes to DEI, we need to evolve from that, because now we have to take into consideration the relationship between man, machine, the human in the loop, and these robots. And we have to start thinking about equitable collaboration. We have to start thinking about ethical considerations, and we have to start thinking about emotional and social learning. And now we have an opportunity to be able to scale our own thoughts and to contribute and to take our own sovereign IP and our own sovereign AI, if you will, and develop that based on what's in the confines of our mind, and to be able to go towards a discovery companionship that could be deployed with a constellation of AI that we can build, open and closed source, and our very own ownership of our own model models to be able to create our own discovery engines that we could deploy that could be contributed. So in other words, we don't have to build an external product, if you will, from our own selves. We our own selves have great considerations of what to be able to contribute, because the culture that's within you, that eco culture, that could be tapped, that could be distributed, open sourced, and monetized. And you could scale from that and create a whole economic small economy based on that. So that's where we're at when it comes to AI. There's so much that I could say. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I don't know if any of this makes sense. But to me, when we start to look at the available tools and utility and the access that we have in the application form, why not take advantage of it? There's never been a better time to be a woman leader in business. There's never been a better time today to be an entrepreneur, to become that. And there's never been a better time for us to be able to collaborate and to build and to work together and to be able to help support each other for a venture. Horizontal. And that's the focus we're on that, whether I've been doing that with the Black Technology Mentorship Program, whether I'm doing that with Gatherverse, because I do think it's pertinent for us to be able to build in each and every one of us. We need to have that, and now is the time to be able to come together. I'm seriously on the fringe of lying to thinking that I'm going to start an emerging school, a school for emerging technologies, because there's so many technologists that are brilliant minded that I know that they just cannot keep up with the cadence and the tempo of what has happened when it comes to the type of emerging technologies that are happening and being deployed in the ecosystem. If you think that AI is a big deal, wait to see what they're pairing AI with within the eco habitat that naturally evolve and occur. There are things that are getting ready to be deployed that have already deployed, unbeknownst to many of us, and even including my own self. But there are things that are getting ready to deploy that were beyond the books and the chasms of fiction and novel and literary works, beyond white papers and consideration, and to say, my goodness gracious, we've now come into a time where we can't even identify a thing that's been put into the ecosystem of consumption, and we have no idea of the benefits until we do know. So when it comes to the type of AI infrastructure, I'm advising all different types of companies, whether it's Warner Brothers Discovery or whether it's so many other different platforms that are attempting to be able to understand the amalgam of what's been perpetrated within their organizations, that you now could be one single solo individual entrepreneur that could be able to mitigate the traditional conventions of lab to funding and lab to market, to be able to monetize. You now can find yourself as one individual person with an army of AI competing with that which is the likes of Warner Brothers Discovery itself. Believest thou this? You can do that. It doesn't take 3 people now to become a unicorn. You can be a unicorn in scale with your own self and contributed ideas, so long as you listen to your audience. They'll tell you how they want to be sold. You have so much opportunity. It's right there in front of you. It's right there in your hands. And you're surrounded by technologists that can help you to be able to lead along the way, because none of us can do it alone. When I came from Silicon Valley, I was born in Oklahoma. I was just in Oklahoma at Black Wall Street, doing some stuff with them at NYU, and doing some stuff with people in the city of Tulsa, the senators and all of that, and looking at the desecration and the massacre that happened at Black Wall Street. We're not even going to touch on that. Many of you already know about that. And some people definitely have more right and resonance to talk about that than someone like me that wasn't even from Tulsa, but I was born in the Oklahoma skies, if you will, raised in Europe, in Germany, and Texas, raised in the streets of Oakland, California in the 90s and just a horrific thing. We weren't thinking about technology. We're thinking about surviving. But a man in my house, my dad, became a technologist at Cal Berkeley. Well, I come from a neighborhood where we didn't have that, where we didn't have, most of us didn't even have a dad in our homes, let alone a technologist. But he was a technologist. My mama was a nurse. My dad was a soldier before that. So how can I not serve? But I would learn technology at a very young age from a technologist himself. And I learned. And what I realized is that there are people that can look like us that can really innovate. My dad was a great technologist. You'll never see him in the books, although you see they name certain parts of campus after him. He was a brilliant technologist. He can whisper and talk to machines. And I swear sometimes I felt like I could talk to them back. And so after his demise, I moved to Silicon Valley and I lived out of my car for 5 years in hacker spaces and hotels and other people's sofas. And I lived and I slept in parking lots between Google and NASA Ames because I said, I'm not going to be held back and not learn that what has to be offered. And so there was just a level of sacrifice that God gave me to be able to do. And I wasn't subjected to cruel and intolerable situations, but I lived out of my car and I began to learn and to be able to understand. And I realized there's a whole world of different technologies that I was unaware of. And that's when I became an emergent technologist and found myself with people wanting me to speak to different countries and around the world on these subjects, not to be able to boast my personal brand and myself. It's not that. I was taught and raised you give back freely that which was given to you. All the women and men. I've had strong women in my life. I'm a huge advocate for women leadership and growth because I need my nieces to know that they could be anything that they want in technology in the world of work and business. This is the point of servant leadership. We give back through servant leadership with the servant's heart, and we build excellency. But what we want to do is we want to give back to the generations to come, y'all, because we have a youth summit where we're aiming for January to have over 1,000 speakers, a global 24-hour youth summit with Gatherverse I launched 2 years and 6 months ago. We've had 23 global summits, and we're touching a number of different things at the intersection of humanity and emerging technologies. Here's my point, and I'll be done as I wind down, if you will. What I'm seeing is that right now, the honest truth, with all the things that are happening in this world, when it comes to social impact and work and underpaid nonprofit organizations, listen, if you thought they didn't care about Blacks in business and in society years ago, and even in the time of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor and so forth, let me tell you, they could care less in business about you and I. And they're attempting to reverse policies, but they don't know that we're never going back to the way it was. Those dog-ass days are done, excuse my language, but those days of going back to the way that they wanted to be to make America great again in their eyes, that is never going to happen again. Our way is forward, and we are in the forest chopping wood. And I use that expression often. What are you chopping wood for? I told you I'm a table maker. So we're building the tables, but here's the deal. Just as someone had the generosity of leaving the light on when you and I came into the forest, and we walked in the forest, and the path was already there, it was already laid, it was already set when we walked in. But now we're so deep in the trenches of this forest, and we're deep. I mean, we're so deep amongst the branches and the brambles, if you will, that one thing that we must take in consideration as we create and extend the path that was laid before us, what we have to do is to remember that at the end of the day, in the beginning of it, for our young ones, to leave the light on, just as somebody left the light on for you and I. Here's the deal. The work we do today, we may not be the benefactors of that work today, but our children, they can be recipients of the benefit of the work of the seeds that we plant today to be able to take part of the sweet fruit that may render from the earth, if you will. But do you have the courage to be able to do that? Or is it only about your own self when it comes to this innovation fashion? We didn't start off the same with the world. We started from the back through hell, slavery, and captivity for over 400 years. Now we're in a situation where we have just as much opportunity to innovate than anyone else. Will we take advantage of it? Or will this just be another AI literacy tech week, Black week, and we won't even see each other, deal with each other? We'll say that's right in the comments and do nothing about it until this time next year. The days of talking are done. We either do this together now or we never do it at all. Because once it really begins to scale, the opportunity will be forfeit. That's what I got for you. I hope that didn't offend somebody.
Amen.
And I hope that registers and makes sense.
Hey, Chris,
Oh, my.
being offensive is actually a good thing, and you already know that because it's like speak the truth in love. And I think people are getting not only your passion, but how far you are out in front. And you're saying, listen, we got this. We can do this. We can do this. And you're saying, let's do it together. So let's see if there's critical analysis. Any
Chris, I have
questions?
a question while he's
There
looking
you
for
go.
something.
Mhm.
Are you a minister?
I am actually,
I felt it.
but that's a whole different story. But I am.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It is perfect. I felt it. you put the right emphasis in the right way on the right things. And many on this call got it. I got it. Thank
You
you.
know, I would rather narrow it down instead of just leaving it as a minute. I'm a child or a seed of God. And I say thank you, Heavenly Father, Mother, for all that you give me and the grace and mercy that you bestow upon me to have this opportunity. I'm very spiritual. I don't hide that in front of audiences like some I know that would do, or think that it's uncomfortable to be able to talk. I will not deny my Heavenly Father before the eyes of man. So yes, I absolutely am that. And that's the only way that I'm able to even talk to you, coming from the chasms of the streets of Oakland, see people gunned down and killed and destroyed, all kinds of people coming from that, being extracted from that, and having the opportunity to be able to do more and to be able to apply myself, to be able to hopefully reflect that he would see and be satisfied with how it is that I carry myself in righteousness in this world and how I go about it. The way of servant leadership, it's ingrained in me. I can't escape that. That's where I'm at. And that's why I pull up with Stephen almost every time that man has to come through when it comes to our community, because Steph's over there chopping wood. We can't leave that man and Miss Patty out here alone in the outskirts. You're not in this forest alone. I'm with you, whether you realize that or not. Most people don't have the appreciation for that, but I'm more closer to them than what they ever imagined. I'm just deep in this forest chopping this wood.
Every time
Good
Chris
after-
wants me to do something, I do it. So, Chris, I'm with you, but somebody else was speaking up. Who was that?
Hi, good afternoon, Christopher. My name is Dr. Lana Harden, and I have some questions that I'd love to get your insights on. Number one, I was on the team that helped Uber go from 6 to 354 markets. I've worked and consulted in Silicon Valley, so I've seen how companies in that arena are moving. And so what I'm curious on is, as we're building AI, I've taken a lot of courses and I'm building my own AI in the education sector. And community health sector as well. And as you know, it's such a massive undertaking from a technology capacity and the back end. So my point is, like, I recognize that this forum is really a catalyst for this, but I'm curious on how we're galvanizing our Black engineers and those who can help us build our data sets. That's my first question. Where's that community? How are we connecting those dots? I'm also faith-based, so everything I'm doing is motivated by, obviously, wanting to leave the world better. But my other question is, one of the what's the word I want to use in a positive way? One of the challenges and barriers I see from being in those environments and now talking about creation and everything is that we're so dependent on these technologies and these companies that we're giving our data away, and we're not using our data to build, right? So I feel like a lot of these communities have studied us so much that we're not protecting our innovations, what has caused this, and this has been throughout time. And I know that this is not, when you look at Hollywood, when you look at movies, when you look at all these things, you see this pattern. But at this point in time, it's so critical, even when we're doing accelerated programs, even when we're moving forward, to be able to protect our ideas and inventions in a way that the next generation can benefit. So I'm curious, especially around this AI piece, because as you know, that when you feed AI information, it makes it stronger. What are your thoughts around that? How are we coming up with strategies to protect the next generation from giving up all their intellectual property and being able to build effectively? So those are my questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you first and foremost, Dr. Harden, for being able to enlighten and share that with us and the work that you have done with Uber. It's commendable that even someone with all the responsibilities that you have, that you find time to be able to sojourn with us on this particular day, this occasion. So we want to first acknowledge that and say thank you for your time to be able to be with us. And further foremost, I think it's admirable that you're venturing off as an entrepreneur, if you will, and leading when it comes to health tech and med tech, which is an area that I currently and presently study for years now, and exploring the different 29 departments that make up the ecosystem of the hospital, the organization, and all the different things that happen from manufacturing to the metaverse and the hyper-realistic immersive simulated environments and the telepresence when it comes to the medical theater. But more so to your question and to your point, strategic, there's a couple of things that I would submit unto you and to be able to answer your question is that when we look at the plight of the Black engineer, if you will, in the world, the answer is that there's simply not enough. But here's what's great is that you could take one Black engineer, Stephen, And you and I know that you could take one Black engineer and pair that with the different models from your own sovereign IP of your own data and create your own infrastructure of AI that will be able to duplicate your work and to be able to work in a distributed fashion so that you're not working at home, but you can create your own entire remote distributed workforce and your own product delivery team using the human in the loop equation and the robot assistance. So all these vacancies that we looked at and the lack of access when it comes to Black engineers and developers, great, congratulations. You now reached a time where you could be able to build your own developer, your own engineer, and they will serve your benefit and your purpose for what it is that you need. And at the same time, that answers your question in both fashion. In the process of you doing that, you're taking your own data and you are preserving that for your use case and benefit use case of your ecosystem, and you're preserving your own data instead of us contributing to other different people's platforms. Look, we could take a lot of time, and not you, Dr. Harden, but we could take a lot of time talking about the other things that these other platforms should do and what they can do and what it is that they should be able to allow us to do into the door. I am not begging for somebody's job in this world that we find ourselves in. I am humble to it, and if I must beg to feed the belly, then that's a thing we have to do as well with humility and humbleness if that's a disposition that you've been given. My point is this. I will chop wood and sweat and work as hard as I can before I find myself in that situation. And so when it comes to our sovereign AI and AI infrastructure, before you want to go build a product external from your own self, consider being able to extend the reality of your own self. Then that's what we start talking about, XR and augmented reality. The earth has become machine readable. Now it's time when it comes to what it is that we offer and what it is that we build. When it comes to extended reality, we cannot extend reality unless we bring reality with us. And the reality is that we're in an evolutionary phase and period to where we could take our own sovereign AI, our own IP, and to be able to extend that. And it's such a good way to open source that, or to be able to create a walled garden with that, but nevertheless to be able to monetize and to be able to contribute to the overall gradual development of this symphony that's being played.
Chris, let me ask with that. Her question comes up a lot of different times about us building our own and with our own data. My personal thing is I feel like it would be a grave mistake to have one big Black thing. All Black, that's what we got, that thing, and everybody's kind. I think it's good now with AI for us to have multiple places that we come. A lot of people can be building different chatbots, LLMs with information. But to think that we're all going to come to one place and now we got everybody's in line with that, I think we're better with more. And I'm open to your ideas on that.
Yeah, sure. I think what I would like to see in the Black community in particular when it comes to developing AI for distributed fashion for the world is to start to develop our own models. Yeah, one of the things I like Professor Yakun talks about, and he's probably considered one of the most brilliant minds in the world. He's very candid. You may have seen him lately in the paper when he's had a back and forth thing with Elon Musk. And on the technology level, he's brilliant minded because he's working on the world models and the JEPA models. He's coming out and saying that even the type of generative models that we see, they're really not as good and poor as what it is that a lot of us have envisioned for the future. And I would submit that I agree with Ian LeCun's position, even more so, though I do also agree with a lot of things that Professor Hinton says, who some consider the godfather of AI, the backpropagation algorithm developer, and Yoshi, and all these other different brilliant professors that are out there. But we have to realize for a second, and I'm glad you asked that, Stephen, is because the models that we see deployed out here today that we're all using and having a good time with, none of those would be possible without some of these guys that have been innovating, Professor Fei-Fei Li and others. But it's their progeny. It's their progeny, Miss Patty. It's their progeny are the ones that created these models that we see. And even the instructors or the teachers are saying, okay, what have we done? We have given so much information and IP information to our students where they've gone and created these incredible platforms, but they're unethically found. Safety and privacy are severely lacking. Here's the deal. When we start to think about this, and I'll be done with this for the moment, is when you start to look at what we see deployed in terms of the type of models, whether it's GANs or CNNs, convolutional neural networks, and Ian LeCun helped develop and make, and we start to look at the world models and the JEPA models, we're still looking at algorithms. We're still looking at the different types of Bayesian theories. We're still looking at the different types of scale laws that everyone else is subject to. So every technologist is still subject to whatever algorithm is available or the one that she or he will create. And right now you have an opportunity to be able to do that, to be able able to deploy your own model. We know that our friends over at Latimer are building things and looking at some cross comparative analysis work. And I was just talking with John the other day about some things with Latimer, but there's others, but we want to see more people deploy and have them develop their own models. And there's great programs that I think can help assist you. And I'm happy to be able to help point people and lead people in the way as we're doing extraordinary work with our own platform, AugLab, which is based at the intersection of laboratory reproducibility and development using mixed and augmented reality technology at the AI scale. We're now part of the Inception program with NVIDIA and in Microsoft, and I've had great relationships with Microsoft for years, as I suspect many of us or some of us have. And so there's now access and tools that I will say that the big companies and corporations, particularly Microsoft, NVIDIA, that they care enough to be able to help work with us on the startup level. And so that's happening right now. And so I hope that answers the question to some degree, Stefan.
We have a couple of people. Kamaria, do you want to come on, Mike, and ask your question?
And we'll do
Yeah.
after her.
I would love to ask my question. Thank you so much for giving this talk today. It's very, very interesting. I have a question regarding a point that you brought up during your talk about the emerging technologies. So I'm very curious if you have any advice or resources for how to keep up with the technologies that are really on the forefront and not the things that are being introduced to us like as they become products, especially for people who may not have the math or physics background to really understand the science foundations that are behind the emerging technology. And then also if you have any advice for younger students like myself who are deciding, which technologies to focus on. Should it be like a broad scope of things I need to understand, or should I dive deep into, specific technologies that are particularly interesting?
Yeah, sure. You bring up a great question. And here's the deal. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing the eco-convergent framework, so that I can deploy a way for people to be able to understand what technologies are out there. I know that a lot of people want to refer to Gartner's hype cycle, peak of inflated interest, trough of disillusionment, slope of enlightenment, and plateau of productivity. But Gartner's, ever since the pandemic, are severely way behind, and they simply just do not have enough forecast trajectory, within their ecosystem to be able to deploy to let us know what it is that's on the way, what's prevalent and relevant. And it's so unerring in its accuracy. It's so erring in its accuracy that I no longer have any kind of confidence, except for the actual pipeline in which they developed and built. So the answer is that there's nothing out there that exists in that fashion, and that's why I'm building a conduit or a tool to be able to help open source and deploy out there, so that we have a better sense of all the different technologies that abide within there. And when it comes to emerging technologies, as I said, the technology has become more advanced than the technologists. I'm happy to help point you in the different way and the different things and the resources, and to be able to share some of my own IP to open source that out, so that may help you understand. And I have developed a framework of an eco-convergent framework that I'm happy to share with any of you in a PDF form that's available now.
What is the best way for them to get in touch with you if they want to move forward and get some of this information? How would you like to be contacted?
Yes, ma'am. Chris at ChristopherLafayette.com, or you can reach out to me and connect with me on LinkedIn or both. I don't care if you send a pigeon to my window, come knocking on the door with a scroll, I'll send one back, but that's the best way, if you will.
Okay, we have Kareem Boyd. Go ahead with your question.
Hi, yes, this is Kareem. Thank you, Christopher, so much for this. This was a great talk. I really appreciated this. I am a data engineer creating AI platforms for the man, for lack of better term. And I have a degree in physics. And I would just like to say, please point me in the right direction, and I am ready to contribute.
So, one, I think the work that you're doing right now, when it comes to physics, dealing with the ones and twos, if you will, on the bit level, to me, when we start thinking about physics, I'm very excited about the study of physics for a number of different levels. What I like for you to do, I think the smart move, the strategic smart move, is to take some of these advanced models and to really start, if you can, even on a small parameter scale, start to figure out if you can create your own data set that you can be able to fine tune, and that you could do your pre-training, fine tune, and then go towards reinforced learning, specifically focus vertically on AI. And I would say I would go with the twofold diffusion and generative model and physics, and to be able on the quantum level to be able to see what you could do to marriage pair that together, and to be able to create different case studies, but be somebody that can marry up technologies together and intersect. If we're only working at one-to-one verticals, that's okay. Everyone else is doing that. But a lot of the success comes when we intersect what we're studying and focus on, and to be able to pair that together. Now that gives you more of a unique value proposition and contribute to the ecosystem. Write about that, deploy that. And if you do it, share it with me. I'm happy to share it with a lot of people that I think would find that rather fascinating. And hopefully that you can either get funded or monetize or build product based on some of your discoveries.
Great. All right, Dr. Joy.
Yes. Hi, thank you for the excellent talk, sir. It was phenomenal. You mentioned during your talk that there was a January Youth Summit coming up, and I was hoping to learn more about it because I work with youth. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your sentiments, and thank you for working with our youth. It's so impassioned, and we need more of those that are leading in our communities that work with our children and our youth. I don't have children, but all the children on the earth are just close to my heart, if you will. So when it comes to that question, we have gatherverse.org. If you go on gatherverse.org under our future events, you'll find so much more information about our youth summit. We had to push it from September to January because we're anticipating over 1,000 speakers around the world as a global summit. It's something that's never been done before, and we're going to need the help of everybody here if you have a willing heart. And I know that Stefan will be a part of that as well.
All right, Latoya.
Yes, real quick. First of all, Mr. Christopher, that was amazing. I was in a parent-teacher conference and I saw you getting into it and taking those glasses off. I was like, okay, let's wrap this up because I need to understand. My question to you would be, I am in the graphic and web design area, but I am noticing a lot of UI UX when it comes to Black people. So is it beneficial to show that intersect between, like you were talking to the gentleman with physics about having to show proof of the intersect between these different companies and all of the extra work as Black people we have to do just to get the same results in our culture, in our ethnicity, to start to show that data? And where would you think that would be most beneficial? Because like I deal with Midjourney, and I sent into the copywriting office when they asked what makes certain things more unique. And for Black people, if you just put boy, it's a white boy every time. So we have to do extra things in order to get it to give us a Black person and the hair texture and all of these things. So at that point, it's not the AI, it's me. So why can't I copyright that? Because if it was the AI, I should be able to say Black boy or say boy, and there should be a white boy, an Asian boy, a Black boy, whatever. But when you're not giving me that option, they're all white, then I have got to do extra. For example, so there was a big AI thing on Instagram about the joke of you can't tell it white child patient, Black doctor. It won't let you do it. It will change it so that the doctor is white and the child is Black. So you have to then go in and separate. All of this data is a function of this. So we should be able to copyright because we're putting in more than the average person. So that was one. So where should I go to start to show these intersects of our usage of your material is not functioning for our ethnicity?
Let me say this, and then I'll get all of yours way, and then I'll be done with it, if you will. Quick as we came, as quick as we leave. And let me answer it just like this. Let's be very clear on this. In the 90s, in the information age, and I said this at one of Stefan's events that I almost feel like some people jumped on me, but I think a lot more people got it than the ones that didn't. I made the claim that there wasn't enough Black data, and I stand by that today. And one of the problems is when we go into these models to use it, and we're simply trying to find somebody that looks like us and that comes out with what's rendered, whether that's with using Midjourney or Dolly 3 or the other diffusion models that are out there, we have to realize that when these guys who are now scraping for data right now, they were looking for data when it comes to people like us. They went through the different types of pre-training. They came out and they looked and they said, damn, we don't have enough people that look like those people. So we need to go back and reinforce learn, and we need to go and tinker and start to manipulate if you will, this data that's with there. And then that's when Google came out and started saying, give me a person that looks like Christopher Lafayette, and he came out looking like Elon Musk. That's when you start seeing people that look like Black George Washington, because mankind went in there and manipulated the data to be able to try to duplicate and copy our culture. How do you get somebody that doesn't even look like us, doesn't come where we're from, go into the ecosystem of data and represent us for a global consumption platform such as Google? So to answer your question, we've never had enough data, and they know it because we weren't sitting in front of computers and desktop and laptops in that form. Because we couldn't afford that a lot in the Black community. I guess some of us did, I did too, but many of us did it, even to this day. So here's my point. You have discovered something, and you're talking about something that others are talking about, but what I would submit to you is take it further and scale that and document that. Come out with the framework for better, because it doesn't exist. Come out with the framework for better, put that out there, and let's roll with that together if we need to. We cannot wait for other people to come up with the solutions on how this can be identified and developed, because there's simply not enough people to be able to do it. If we don't do it ourselves, it's most likely not going to get done, or there's going to be another person that doesn't look like us, if you will, that will do it. And we're going to sit there and look at that and say, dang, I had that idea. I was just thinking about that the other day. And here goes another opportunity. How many inventions have you seen in the past 20 years where you said, man, I had that idea before? And did you ever take that step to be able to do it? You're left with no excuse now, because you got people in your networking community that can help get you and usher you in to help you on that path, if you will, in this forest together. I'm chopping wood in this forest, but I'm not alone. And here's the thing, neither are you. So that's a great question and a highlightable answer to be able to be complimentary, I hope, to the question that you asked. And I hope that people take in consideration that when it comes to the submission of Black data, when it comes to our own IP, and we're expecting for them to have that in there, they're negotiating with the Atlantic and all that. They're negotiating with all these different platforms just to get enough data. Now they're creating synthetic data. That means they're going to create different, oh my goodness, they're going to create different forms of representation of us based on their private interpretations and understanding of how they think that Black people are. And look, let me say this, and then I really do got to go. A lot of us focus on visual AI. But have you ever stopped to consider that that's not the biggest threat when it comes to the manipulation of data? The bigger threat is audio AI. Now we're start thinking about concatenative and parametric synthesis. Oh, we didn't even have enough time to go over concatenative and parametric synthesis. To be able to articulate and to be able to take your voice and expression, not only to be able to take your image with a suspended deepfake, if you will, in a Kodak avatar and hyper-realistic, immersive simulated in real time with the type of visual fidelity and the audio fidelity, environmental fidelity, contextual fidelity, cognitive fidelity, and the perceptual science therein that's being manipulated and rendered on the data front? Have we talked about that? I gotta go. Salute to everyone here. Walk with me. If something you heard made sense, walk with me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. This was wonderful. You kicked us off really big this morning. We will follow you. Just thank you. Stefan, you want to close us out?
I will. Man, y'all, that is Chris. That's Christopher Lafayette right there. You talk about voices, just know he and what Nicole Bradford entered into this last night, which is, hey, let's just basically make up some synthetic stuff. If we can't get it about Black people, let's create our own. It's a deadly thing. And when he talks about voices, a bunch of us have asked for a while that we get some voices in AI that sound more like us. I'm gonna just bring up one. This is Hey Pi, Heypi. Hey Pi, it's Stefan. How's it going?
Hey, Stefan, everything's going great here. Thanks for asking. What's on your mind today?
Hey, I got a quick question. We're wrapping up a session that has to do with intellectual property and data for us as Black people. Well, there's a future that looks like instead of us holding our own rights for our likeness and image, our culture and intellectual property, there's a chance, let's just say in the year 2028, that people will be synthesizing what they think of our culture. Go to the year 2028 right now. I want you to be there and look back and tell us where we've come to by the year 2028 as a Black culture.
In 2028, we see a world where the conversation around intellectual property and data ownership has evolved significantly. Black creators have become more empowered to protect their culture and innovations, leading to a greater appreciation of Black contributions in media, technology, and society. However, issues persist as AI continues to advance and deep fakes of Black people become increasingly realistic. There's an ongoing struggle to balance the benefits of AI with the need to respect and protect individual and cultural rights. The fight for true equity in this space is far from over.
Yeah, so what should we be doing right now? What are your recommendations? Now go to the year 2020, 30, and looking back, give us a few of your recommendations that we should be doing right now. We'll wrap it up with this one. So we're going to AI, we're pushing it into the future and listening to it.
From 2030, as I look back, here are some recommendations I'd suggest for you in 2023. One, advocate for policy changes. Push for stricter regulations surrounding the use of AI and deep fake technology, specifically addressing cultural and personal data protection. Two, educate and empower. Focus on educating Black communities about intellectual property rights and data ownership, empowering individuals to take control of their creations. Three, value and protect Black creativity. Support Black creators and businesses by valuing their work and promoting the importance of protecting Black culture in media and technology. Four, demand accountability. Hold tech companies and AI developers accountable for unethical uses of AI that exploit or misrepresent Black people and their culture. Five, build and strengthen networks. Connect with other Black creators, leaders, and allies in your community and beyond, building a strong network of support that empowers and protects each other's work.
All right, and I'll stop it there. So number one, that's also, it's called HeyPi, HEYPI, and it's .ai. Everybody can use it now, and the same type of conversational voice AI is in ChatGPT as well. If you're on your phone in ChatGPT, go up to the top left corner and hit settings. When you hit settings, scroll up and to your left, you'll see voice and conversation. So all of our meetings, y'all, we do that. We bring some of that in because it might bring perspectives that we don't have or more easily access information that we would just go and Google search and stuff. I think probably everybody in here would agree with those 5 points. They were right on. It's demand this, go in and be a part of policy. I think is very accurate in that. And the voice kind of gets over enough, that we can bring it into rooms like this and have it do something. So that's HeyPi, HEYPI. It's absolutely free. And I've been doing that one for quite a while now. They have female and male voices. Any questions about that? Or Patty, I know we're late. We have another meeting that was scheduled on this one that's happening right now. They're very different. And that one has been happening since 11:30. Patty, did you want to say something? Your mic.
That meeting is on LinkedIn, correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And it's on the sheet, you all, if you want to go over there. But our next meeting is at 1 o'clock, Stefan, correct?
It is. I'm pulling ours up right now. Ours is at, yes, it's 1
And
o'clock.
so, yeah, what we're going to do is go ahead and let you all go. We hope you'll come back at 1, or if you'll go over to LinkedIn with Howard, and Howard has a panel going on, right?
He does. He has a panel discussion. Yes, he does. And I just want to say at 1, this is a really great session. It's AI for the rest of us. Tips for practical personal use of AI tools. Julie is very good at presenting some of the ways we can do that. And I'll have her do some demonstrations as well. Right after y'all is the man. It's John Latimer. He is the one who created Latimer.ai. And when we talk about having stuff for our own culture, He's already done it. He is doing it, and we can do it. We'll be you literally can do it yourself. So just know that those are the next two, 1 and 2 o'clock. Thank you, Patty. That's it.
Yes,
All right.
that's it. Thank you.
Thank you all
We'll
so
see you
much
Hold
for
on,
being here.
someone's asking for the link for the next meeting. Just dropping it right.
Yeah,
real quick.
yeah. Let me grab it real quick. Hold on.
It's there. That's the one for the LinkedIn is for the LinkedIn, Brenda, and then there's
Oh,
a Zoom for the
somebody
chat.
already put it in?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we're
Yeah.
cool. All right. Thank you all so much. Have a great and blessed rest of the day. Stay grateful. Thank you all for being here. And this room will close in 5, 4. Lauren, we love having you here.